All right, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. What is up? I am your host, Charlie Shrem, and we're diving deep together with another epic episode of Untold Stories, where twice a week we get to talk to some of the most brilliant minds in cryptocurrency, tech, Web3, those who have been around for 10 plus years and those who have joined our industry just a few days ago. We're here with you during crazy, exciting bull market times. We've been together during multiple bear markets now. Uh, we've been together through a lot, almost coming up on episode 300. So thank you all to my listeners in all the countries where I'm in the top charts, and everyone who's sees me at conferences who comes up and tells me they love the show. Been going to a bunch of conferences. You guys just heard another episode where we had a live panel from Consensus, and then I brought you a few weeks prior to that. We did a panel together in Monaco. So I love traveling and bringing all you guys with us. And then those who leave all the nice reviews too, I really appreciate that. It's been such an amazing time. And the best part about doing the show is actually bringing back guests who were kind of not just starting out, but in earlier parts of their journey, bring them back, see, where they've been, what's happened since then, how things have kind of come through. It's my super honor to introduce to you guys again, Michael O'Rourke, a founder and CEO of the Pocket Network, and actually the whole Pocket ecosystem. Thanks for coming back on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Charlie. And yeah, talking about the markets. I mean, this is my third bear market at this point, and kind of going through that. It's always it's frankly the best time to be around, in my opinion, in the space.
When I think about a lot of the stuff that happens on a day-to-day basis, you're one of the people that I think about because, to give a little bit of background, Pocket Network is a decentralized infrastructure for developers who want to build applications on top of various blockchains and then connect them. So the idea is that you can connect an app to a blockchain through infrastructure that's decentralized. A lot of people know this as like RPC in the traditional sense. But really, you're like the plumbing for all of the connectivity from all the applications to all of the actual blockchains that it's like the underlying infrastructure. And so when there's a lot of activity on all of these chains, I'm always thinking about kind of what's going on. We were on the show together maybe a year ago or something like that. Do you have any thoughts about how things have changed since then?
Yeah, I mean, the space itself, things have absolutely kind of kept moving along, and things have changed a lot with Pocket as well. I think when we spoke about a year ago, we were probably doing around 5 to 10 million requests a day through the network itself. We were just kind of getting started and kind of proving the network out. And since then, over the course of about 10 months, we actually hit 1 billion requests over the course of 24 hours. So we've seen pretty remarkable growth on that side of things, with really just proving out that a protocol like Pocket can operate at scale. And on top of that, you mentioned community and and the people around Pocket. It's just been absolutely remarkable seeing how many people are building businesses on top of the protocol. The activity across the DAO and the governance aspect of Pocket has probably been the most remarkable thing for me to see from having thought about this almost 6 years ago at this point. So,
What's that like, having governance on chain? What type of things need to be discussed and voted on?
Yeah, so the Pocket DAO governs three things. It governs the monetary policy of Pocket. There's a treasury that 10% of all rewards go to this DAO treasury that's managed by the DAO, and it also governs protocol upgrades. Given the space that we're in, or the time that we're in today, the biggest concern for everyone has been the monetary policy of Pocket and what we can do to basically make things more efficient, cheaper for nodes, better for applications, and these sorts of things. So we've just had a rush of proposals be submitted on our forums, and just almost hundreds of comments on each one of these proposals, with people giving some of the most thoughtful feedback. And we're a DAO that is actually one person, one vote. So it's not token weighted governance like you might see on many DeFi protocols. And we've grown from 5 initial voters to almost 40 now. And these are all individuals who are participating in Pocket, all voting. And we have a couple of proposals out right now, and we've reached 80% of all voters actually participating in this. And this is actually something that's just, absolutely remarkable to see. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, so many of the people that we've spoken to that have DAOs, and or if you just go on to, like, I forget which site it is. It's like snapshot.org or something, where you can see all the different, like, or Masari, you can see all the different on-chain proposals for different blockchains. But the biggest problem is like turnout. Usually it's only a few whales that turn out and control everything, because most people, whether they're holding their crypto on exchanges or something like that, or they're just not, direct democracy for day to day, or different like proxies. Like, why do you think you've been able to get such high turnout?
Yeah, I think, you can think of it like a normal democracy. You'll get higher turnout for contentious votes.
Okay, yeah, good
When you're
point.
impacting people's bottom lines, you'll definitely get people out to vote, right? I think that's a big reason why. I think also people are just generally pretty active because these voters, they're participants in the network, and they, like I do, believe that the blockchain is going to be as large, if not larger, than the internet. And when you talk about the infrastructure and all these things, at some point, or RPC, at some point, every blockchain needs to touch, or every user needs to touch a blockchain node at some point in the stack. And I think a part of the reason why we're seeing this activity is because people care about this future, and they're actually really deeply thinking about the nuanced, issues that Pocket has and how to solve them. And it's just something that's just been incredibly exciting to see. We have people reading our constitution that we wrote 2 years ago, even highlighting whether a certain proposal is not constitutional within the actual constitution that we wrote, which is just unbelievable. It's just absolutely unbelievable.
So every user of this show has had an interaction with a blockchain node in the past year. Almost probably a decent percent of like the global, I don't say global population, but you're talking about like wherever this show is listened to, those countries, a decent percentage of those folks have touched a blockchain node in the last year. So interfacing with, whether it be trading or a smart contract or something like that. So this is something that needs to happen. And then at the same time, you have this huge opportunity for like centralization of that infrastructure. So in the traditional like tech world, you'd have one or two providers like uh Amazon Web Services or something like that, or whatever the equivalent is to Pocket. You'd have like multiple, and I think I read that like the company that works with MetaMask, it's like they have like 50% of the market share of how transactions are done through Ethereum. I forget exactly the number there. But it's like, how have you decentralized, how have you incentivized decentralization in such a hyper technology that would look to be centralized?
Yeah, we kind of thought about it from first principles early on. It's something that if you looked at the old Bitcoin Talk forums or E3
Yeah.
search forums, people would say, "Hey, we have to incentivize full nodes for X, Y, or Z reason."
Oh, I remember those
And
conversations.
yeah,
Oh my god, those conversations were so intense. That was like a very, can you talk about that for a little bit?
yeah, people would, most of the perspective was, how can we upgrade Bitcoin, or how can we upgrade Ethereum to incentivize people to run these nodes? A big, a big reason why I got in the space was kind of this sovereignty and owning your own data and verifying it yourself, right? What's the saying? Verify, don't trust,
Yeah, don't trust,
uh,
verify.
or don't trust, verify. And we got away from that over the last 6 to 8 years. Really, you start to see the original version of Coinbase had people running their own Bitcoin clients to connect our Bitcoin nodes and these sorts of things, and eventually they switched from that, right? And the challenge is, as you said, we've got these bottlenecks, and the RPC infrastructure layer is one of them. So yeah, we wanted to make sure that if we came up with a solution that was actually better than the existing status quo, right? I don't think people necessarily would choose Pocket or use Pocket if it was just because it was decentralized. I think it's important to use decentralization, very much how, people send USDC, USDT, DAI, you name your stable coin. It's
Yeah.
much easier. That's a 10x improvement on the status quo, right? So we saw an opportunity to actually see a 10x improvement, if not more, on the existing status quo. You mentioned Amazon Web Services. There's really 3, maybe 4 companies that handle all of the infrastructure of all modern technology today, right? And that's problematic when you've got 2 or 3 or 4 CEOs that really decide everything. We view Pocket as a public good, which is why we've started to see so much activity on our DAO, because we actually decided not to keep that power, right? As we kind of grow and kind of really build we're really building a country in real time at this point. And it's just been incredible to see.
As we've learned in the last few months through this bear market, there need to be more businesses that provide a profit and positive cash flow that are always on chain. Like, and I'm not talking about like businesses where you can like securitize the equity and then do dividends. I'm talking about like your company, or what's now like a distributed company, that you provide a service to the blockchain industry, and the node holders get paid for that, and then Pocket gets a piece of that. So the governance of that needs to be like real time. It needs to be able to change rapidly. It almost needs to be like the opposite of how centralized companies are kind of run. And then it's really interesting how that. What have you guys learned from growing so rapidly?
Yeah, what have we learned?
Oh
What
man,
haven't
right?
I learned? Oh man. um, you know, uh, uh, I think transparency and communication when you're building kind of a layer 1 like Pocket, is probably the most important thing for me at this point. It's very easy for people to fill in gaps if you aren't there, actively communicating, whether in communities or through your own marketing material, whatever it is.
Sure.
That's something that can get out of hand, I think, very quickly, and that's definitely one thing that I've learned. Being more clear about roadmaps and where you're going and why you're doing things is just so critically important. I'll give you an example. We grew so fast when it comes to kind of just the raw requests, and on the heels of that, Pocket grew massively in nodes as well. We were at almost 50,000 nodes across over 30 countries, providing service to end users who are using Web3 in some form or fashion. And as a result, the costs of the network actually ballooned as well. It became harder to run a Pocket node. It became more expensive. It went from $10 a month to $80 a month. 50,000 of them. Like, that's pretty expensive. What's really great is that the DAO and various community members came in and was like, guys, this is a problem. Let's fix it. Right. And being able to provide avenues for people to make those changes easily and quickly is something that we weren't prepared for, as an example. And that's something that this process has really opened our eyes to when it comes to developer contributions and this sort of thing. And now we're on track to lower the cost of the network by magnitude, if not more, which is huge when you talk about profitability and the sustainability of a protocol like Pocket, not just the businesses built on top of it, but the actual protocol. I think of it, if you're familiar with video game design, that they have this concept of faucets and sinks when it comes to, let's say you're using like gold, WoW gold or something, or RuneScape gold or whatever it is, right? And there needs to be a balance there of the faucet, which creates the gold, or in our case, Pocket, right? And the sinks, what takes that Pocket away, right? Whether it's staking or burning, you need a balance there, right? And Pocket is an interesting situation where, similar to Bitcoin mining, there's an actual physical footprint and a cost to creating Pocket, right? So that has to be taken into consideration when it comes to the network itself and developers buying Pokt and other nodes buying Pokt and other kind of sinks within the network itself.
You're talking about relays. I'm looking at I'm reading your weekly recap. I have it up here, and it's like you're talking about billions of relays across like a dozen or so blockchains that are the most widely used between Polygon, Harmony, Gnosis. even Ethereum. But it's a decentralized network of nodes that kind of run through this infrastructure. What percentage of these nodes are you guys versus like other people or other centralized infrastructure? You are such an important part of the plumbing of like half a dozen blockchains. It's really insane.
Yeah, the company runs maybe 200 nodes out of almost 50,000 at this point. So we actually don't run any of the nodes or run very few of them. And yeah, when you look at the market, we're maybe 1 to 2% of the entire RPC market today. That's kind of immediately kind of available to us. And we're seeing a lot of this start to spread into many, many, many blockchains, which is really kind of Pocket's advantage in this, because you can kind of think of us as like a Uniswap for RPC infrastructure, right? Where people are incentivized to spin up, Charlie Chain as an example, right? Because they see that, there'll be a wallet, there'll be a block explorer, there'll be some apps, this sort of thing. Whereas it's a very different equation if you're kind of a centralized, kind of one of our centralized counterparts in that respect. But it's really a question of how many requests am I doing, and that creates an incentive for people to want to run these full nodes.
There's been a bunch of issues with centralized lenders lately. A bunch of them needing to get bailed out by FTX. Um, there was that was related to like centralized type of some companies, but there was like the Terra Luna collapse. I think Harmony, there was a hack, X Carnival just the other day. What can we do to like, what lessons we're learning a lot of lessons, but what can we actually do to the infrastructure of crypto to like prevent these mistakes later on? Bridges, locking up assets in one chain to use them on another chain. What's going on here? What's like the overall theme? And you're talking to someone who I don't know the answer. I'm trying to learn here.
Yeah, when you're referring specifically to bridges, they're hard. I would view them as kind of early smart contract days. There were so many, so many, so many hacks with these smart contracts, right? And you see less of these hacks today, right?
Yeah.
Now people are building new primitives, which creates new opportunities and kind of areas of risk, right? But that's kind of how this space has matured and evolved, and I think will continue to. What's been really interesting about some of these centralized lenders is that DeFi has been just fine. DeFi has weathered this just absolutely fine. I find it quite interesting that it's really the folks that aren't transparent with how they're using their customers' funds that are the ones that are in trouble, rather than the kind of open systems that exist today on chain, which is for me been probably one of the most important aspects. Given of course everything that's happened is not good, but the fact that the existing DeFi infrastructure has actually held up to snuff with all of this is, I think, one of the silver linings of the time that we're in right now.
It's interesting that we're both in the Tampa Bay region and everything like that, and now we're going through a bear market. Did you? And it's interesting that we had like a massive hyper growth bull market at times when a lot of us were in lockdown at home. But at the same time, we all need like being physical and events to really be creative. But you could look at the data and almost say like, hey, when people were sitting at home, we went through a bull market and hyper businesses and things scaled up. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the space that we're in absolutely needs physical meetings, whether that's through conferences or anything like that. Do I think there's any relation between COVID and the bull market? Maybe. One could say that we were, we've been in a perpetual kind of macro bull for what 12 years at least at this point. Crypto has corrected independently over those years, but I think we're seeing for the first time a series of macro events that, in conjunction, that are really causing everything to feel some pain. no one has a crystal ball, but I tend to think that these cycles get tighter and tighter when it comes to time. I think we're seeing a lot of unwinding with some of these leveraged lenders, and there may be more to follow in the future. I don't know, but I tend to think that there's really a ton of people kind of just waiting on the sidelines at this point. So whether there's
Oh yeah.
a correlation between COVID and kind of the crypto bull. DeFi summer happened right around that time. So there are some other
People
factors
got a
there.
taste of crypto.
Yeah,
They come
yeah,
back.
yeah,
It's an addiction.
yeah. So we'll see. I'm really what I'm most excited for is that I think that people are really acknowledging the importance of kind of sustainability within these projects, and really what it means to have real users and not just print money from the Fed, but also print money from some of these protocols for yield farming schemes and name your food coin and whatever it might be. And I think we'll actually see a shift to focusing on kind of more fundamental value creation rather than kind of the tail
Sure.
wagging the dog, or the snake eating its tail, right? Where you're kind of seeing people jump from chain to chain or scheme to scheme, kind of fueling some of this. I think we're just seeing most of that stuff deflate today, and we'll actually have a much stronger foundation to build on moving forward.
I have to go look. You have to watch out for that stuff though in a positive way, because all of like the meme coin, you know, tail wagging type stuff predates usually that technology is used first with like games or something like that, or like meme related stuff before it's adopted. Like, even Dogecoin started a long time ago, and then all these different things that ended up like people called them, I forget, it was like Sushi Swap and Pancake Swap were had bigger volumes than Uniswap at some point probably. So it's like all these. You're right. But at the same time, we're definitely going through like a push and pull. We definitely go through this push and pull. And I spend a lot of time thinking about it, but I'm also trying to like align all the correct investments and trying to align all of the right people and the relationships to make sure that, and all the listeners at the same time, to make sure that everything is ready to go for the next bull market, or the next time that you could build. But at the same time, in the past bear markets, you would see a lot of people disappear. You would see, like, and this, you would see out of like every 10 people that showed up, one or two people would be left. And it would be like, but now it's different. Now people aren't leaving as much. There's a lot of money that was been withdrawn, but that's just like you said, sitting on the sidelines. But things are different now. And we used to post a meme that people didn't really understand blockchain and cryptos, but now they kind of do. And there's a little bit of like a shift, I think, in society. We went through something in 2020.
Yeah, if you look back in 2014, 2015, and even I'd say 20, I wouldn't say for myself in 2018, 2019, but for many people, the question was, will this even survive?
Yeah,
Right?
right.
Particularly early on, right? Like no one really knew, or very few people really had that conviction, right? And it's just different. It's here to stay now. I think there's a level of sophistication. There's obviously much more money in the system than there was before, and I think we can be pretty sure at this point that it's not leaving, right? Which gives, I think, people more confidence to really sit through these kind of times that we're in today.
Do you think stablecoins will mainstream?
I do. Still excited about stablecoins. I'm more
Yeah,
excited.
same.
I'm more excited about the actually decentralized ones, I suppose. Rye is probably at the top of my list.
Which
It only
one?
uses Rye. Um,
I'm going
uh,
over to stablecoins.wtf. Best site ever.
yeah, yeah, Rye. It's not a dollar denominated stable coin. It sits around $3.11 usually, but it's stable. And what's great is that it uses ETH as collateral rather than something like USDC, USDT, like DAI does, as an example.
Okay.
So, but I generally think that we need, we absolutely need some kind of stable denominated. Uh,
How would it work? It's like such a difficult thing.
Rye specifically, or the stables.
Well, there's stablecoins is not a technology question as it's more of like a game theory question.
Yeah, I
How,
think I think the U.S. is generally going to be positive on stablecoins. I think my biggest fear is that we create kind of an intranet where you've got kind of government sanctioned stables and everything else. I think that's probably my biggest fear when it comes to stablecoin regulation and this sort of thing. I fear that the Terra Luna situation will not be good for kind of the regulatory side of things and may hamper some of this. But nonetheless, people are still building them. It's pretty clear that the pace of growth for things like USDT and USDC, it's clear. People want to be able to exit, from their volatile, Bitcoin, ETH, whatever it might be, into stables. Just a question of which ones really win. And it's hard to say how that plays out.
it's really it's crazy that DAI is at $6.3 billion market cap, and it's been growing over the last 7 days or so. And that to me is a positive because DAI is a crypto backed stablecoin that's like almost a mixed bag. That's at 150% collateral, and if it goes below 150, then it has sells it automatically, and there's an auction where it actually sells it at a discount. Um, but if people were afraid of the future value of cryptos in general, they wouldn't be going back into DAI. But I wonder what the ratio is right now. But I agree. I'm. It would be so cool if stablecoins had the smart contract functionality built into it, so you could like enforce a contract that involves stablecoins on chain.
Yeah. I'm sure there's things out there, right? That people wrap in these stable coins with some of these smart contracts. That absolutely definitely exists. But it's good to hear that DAI is growing like that in a market like
Yeah.
this. I think that's a good signal. Actually, it's a fantastic signal. If people are willing to take their ETH and over collateralize it 150 to 200% for some amount of DAI, that's absolutely fantastic to hear. Actually, the fact
Yeah,
that
I'm
it's grown so
actually
much.
looking the DAI market cap since May 13th, which is like doesn't feels like forever ago, 6 weeks ago. That's when it bottomed out. And since then, it's been on a growth phase. So let's
Yep.
see where that goes.
Yeah, it might be a good signal for the market with everything
Yeah, that's an
unwinding.
interesting signal.
Yeah.
Um, but I agree with you that it would be really cool to see more stable coins succeed. And I think that would be like a killer application for our whole industry, just because that would totally, reinvent the finance as we know it, right? And it would be amazing to have Bitcoin be somehow in like a hybrid or crypto backed stablecoin in a decentralized way, not where like you could just pump some into the treasury and then you put it in there and then hopefully you maintain the peg and it's run by it's being run by one guy or girl instead of that in like a decentralized way. But I don't know from a technology standpoint how you do that from a Bitcoin technology perspective. Like there's nothing really unless we're talking about Lightning, and maybe you'd have to trust the federation or whatever. I guess that could be something cool. There's a lot of technology advancement on top of Bitcoin lately, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think stables have already changed the game. I mean, we did our last sale in January, and 100% of that $10.5 million came in stables, all of it. That's the world has changed if that's the case. If it's much easier for people to be able to send their stables to us than wires to our bank account, I think stables have already really impacted things.
Yeah, isn't it? It's interesting. What about another cool product that we can chat about is like the ability to create like a derivative of a future like product, and so like an example is that stETH token, which is like represents staked ETH on the future Ethereum merged upgraded blockchain.
Mm.
And it's like because that pays out a theoretical APY, you're getting that money now. So it's like if someone has a locked derivative, a locked rental house, for example, you can kind of like pre-sell the tokenized cash flow. That could be something that's really cool on chain too.
Yeah, liquid staking is inevitable and terrifying, to
Why
be honest.
terrifying?
I think if not done properly, it's a really strong centralizing force. The capital wants to be free, and when you're staking your ETH or in any proof of stake network for that matter, people want to make that capital more efficient, and people are going to find ways to lend that to allow people to use that locked up capital in a meaningful way, right? Because if I'm earning a yield, whatever it is, 4 or 5% on ETH on ETH2 chain, I might be able to take however much money that is, lend against it, and turn that into even more production, right? And I think it's inevitable that people try to do this. It's just terrifying because it really truly is a centralizing force in lots of these proof of stake blockchains, and it's something that needs to be thoughtfully considered. I think when as these chains get more mature, I think we have pretty decent efforts with things like Lido, but frankly, I think we need more, much more of it, because it's I think it's going to increasingly become an additional bottleneck to the space if we're not careful about it.
Isn't it funny how like there was that whole conversation about Bitcoin being bad for the environment and proof of work being, energy intensive, and now as soon as Russia invades Ukraine, we're all like back on sucking the, from the oil worlds, like we're all back on this like very energy intensive. Everyone is all excited about it. We're right back on that.
Yeah. The world shifts and very fast, very quickly over time is something I'm noticing as I get older, for sure.
There's a huge amount of opportunity in doing like natural gas, Bitcoin mining, and using that excess energy to do some really cool things. We saw a huge amount of Bitcoin mining, and securitization move all over the world. And it's funny because I have to go back and listen to our episode, but I think we talked last time on this like blockchain trilemma issue, which is like, how do you say, I forget what the three are, but I think it's like decentralized, secure. I forgot that. I'm going to Google this.
Scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going back to what we are talking about earlier with like, remember the debate on the Bitcoin talk forums about incentivizing nodes. And this kind of goes back to that. It brings me back to that because I don't remember what the argument against incentivizing nodes was. I don't remember if like the question was, where is this money going to come from, as so much as it changes the Satoshi game theory of things. But you guys kind of help solve that, and then basically tackling this kind of like fundamental problem.
Yeah. We took it from a perspective of, hey, we think there'll be many chains in this world, so why not build a protocol that is flexible enough to support all these chains rather than fit within a box of a certain blockchain. We decided to build our own blockchain to solve these problems for all the other ones, right? So we were able to kind of think about it from I guess an outsider's point of view,
Yeah.
and able to think about it from there.
Are people doing merged mining anymore? Is that a thing?
Doesn't Stacks do that?
I
recall.
I think they do.
I think Stacks does that actually.
Yeah, I heard a great counter argument to merge mining, where if there's a large enough incentive to attack the merge mine network, it's like the equivalent of it's like then there's no loyalty to that because you weren't initially mining that blockchain to begin with. So what would be your economic incentive to maintain honesty if it was considered like just a bonus for you? I actually really can't think of a counter argument to that counter argument.
Yeah, I'm not super deep into I haven't looked into the merged
bear markets,
mining.
We just spent a lot of time thinking
or building or building.
So like, what
Yeah.
are the opportunities now? Like, you've been through a couple of these, a lot of people on your team. You got some amazing people running your community. There, we have a great. I get to work with some of your DAO members and your team members when working with this fund, Drew Adventures. It's a lot of fun. You got some brilliant token economic minds. What are some like, for the listeners that are going through this for the first time? What would you say to them?
I just learn deeply about what you're looking into, right? When it comes to Pocket, what we're doing is what we feel is that we're seeing that we're pretty anti-fragile to the market at this point. You have people trying to cut costs, and Pocket
Sure.
is a cheaper option. So it's actually quite nice to be as mature as we are during this time right now. But when it comes to more broadly the space, I mean, now is the best time to learn. Really see who's convicted about the space,
Right.
and you can read and listen to them. And all of us are here for various reasons, but it's because we think that there's a better way. There's a better way to live than how we do today. And a lot of the noise goes away during this time. So it's, for me, the most exciting time to learn, get to know people, read what they're doing, get to meet them at all these conferences that are happening. I mean, at this point, you can go an entire year straight from conference to conference, probably almost every weekend at
Right.
this point. And it's actually a really good opportunity to meet people. And I can guarantee that they're much more subdued, or will continue to be much more subdued, which is the best time to have actual meaningful and fruitful conversations.
Yeah, we're just going being at consensus like that. I didn't expect it to be that level-headed. It was really refreshing.
Yeah, it was level-headed. I was there for the week too, and we did take over Austin. It felt like for a few days, but that's something they're used to, I guess, with South by Southwest. But I was super impressed by the quality of the conference. Actually,
Yeah.
there's a lot of builders there. Actually,
All right, Michael, I really appreciate you taking the time and chatting with us today and giving, kind of getting under the hood a little bit. We're able to do a little bit of a deeper dive episode today, which I really like doing. Stay away from kind of like the general topics. Um, I think by this point, if you're listening to episode 300, you could probably be Satoshi at this point. So thanks for everyone for listening. And Michael, thank you for coming on the show.
yeah. Thanks for having me, Charlie. It's always
Of
a
course.
pleasure to be here.